The siege had lasted 47 days. Commander Lena Morris stood at the cracked window of the underground bunker and watched another group of enemy ships come down through the orange sky. She counted 12 of them this time. Yesterday, there had been 8. The Vrexians were getting impatient. Her garrison had started with 300 soldiers. Now she had less than 90. Some had died in the first attack, when the insectoid warriors had swept down from space without warning. Others had fallen in the weeks that followed, picked off by snipers or crushed in tunnel collapses or simply worn down by hunger and exhaustion until their bodies gave up. The bunker smelled like sweat and fear and the sharp chemical scent of medical supplies that were running low. Lena had stopped sleeping in her quarters. She spent her nights in the command center, watching the displays, waiting for something to change. Lieutenant Damon Price walked up behind her. He was a tall man with tired eyes and a wound above his eyebrow that he refused to let anyone treat. He said there were others who needed the medicine more than him. Lena suspected he was right. Another transmission bounced back, Damon said. He held the datapad in his hands, but he did not look at it. All the relay stations are down. We cannot reach anyone. Lena nodded slowly. She had expected this. The Vrexians had planned their attack well. They had chosen a target at the very edge of Coalition space, far from any major fleet. They had jammed every communication signal and destroyed every ship that tried to escape. The mining colony on Calvith Prime was completely alone. What about the emergency beacon? She asked. Still sending. But command would need to be listening. Damon shook his head. Even if they heard us, the nearest fleet is 6 days away. We have supplies for 3, maybe 4 if we cut rations again. Lena did not respond. She watched the Vrexian ships land in the distance, watched the small dark shapes of soldiers pour out of them and march toward the siege lines. There were thousands of them out there. The 90 defenders would not last long when the final attack came. The door behind them opened, and Ambassador Ceres stepped into the command center. She was a Telreni, tall and thin, with blue skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Her species was known for their calm nature and their skill in diplomacy. But even Ceres looked tired now. The soft light that usually covered her skin had grown dim over the past weeks. Commander Morris, Ceres said. Her voice had a musical quality that was normal for her people. I have finished sending the priority distress call through every diplomatic channel I could find. Any response? 1. Ceres paused. Something in her large, dark eyes made Lena feel cold. From Earth's military command. They say they are sending help. Damon let out a short, bitter laugh. Earth? Their nearest ship must be 2 weeks away. We needed a coalition battle group, Ambassador. Not a human vessel that will arrive long after we are dead. You do not understand, Lieutenant. Ceres spoke quietly, but something in her tone made both humans go still. I did not use standard channels. I invoked the covenant of last resort. The command center went silent. One of the Corvathi soldiers at a nearby console turned to stare. Even the soft hum of the computers seemed to fade. Lena felt her heart beat faster. Ambassador, that protocol is only for extinction-level threats. The political problems this will cause will not matter if we are all dead. Ceres met her eyes. I made the call, Commander. Earth confirmed they received it. They are sending their response. What response? Damon demanded. What could Earth possibly send that would make any difference against 300 warships? Ceres was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely louder than a whisper. They are sending Deathbringers. The word hung in the air like smoke. Lena had heard it before, in rumors and half-told stories that she had never quite believed. Tales of human soldiers who were not really soldiers anymore. Weapons in the shape of people. Monsters that Earth kept hidden from the rest of the galaxy. Deathbringers are a myth, Damon said. But his voice was uncertain. Stories that humans tell to make themselves seem more dangerous than they are. They are not a myth. Cerise turned to look out the window at the orange sky. When I invoked the Covenant, I was given access to files that are normally hidden from all but the highest coalition leaders. I read about the Deathbringers, what they are, what they have done, and what are they? Lena asked. Cerise did not answer right away. Her glowing skin pulsed in patterns that Lena had never seen before. Among the Tellarni, such patterns usually meant deep emotional distress. They are what happens when humans stop pretending to be peaceful, Cerise finally said. When the Coalition first met your species, we thought we understood you. We saw your history of wars and conflicts, and we believed that contact with the greater galaxy had helped you move beyond such violence. We were wrong. She turned back to face them. Your people never stopped preparing for war, Commander. They simply got better at hiding it. The Deathbringers are the result of 70 years of secret work. Soldiers who have been changed so completely that they are barely human anymore. Faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything the galaxy has ever seen. How many are there? Lena asked. 600. Perhaps a few more now. Cerise's voice was heavy. Creating them is difficult. The process kills most of those who attempt it. But 600 has been enough. In the few times they have been used, they have never failed. Outside, the Vrexian forces continued to gather. Lena could see their artillery being moved into position, their soldiers digging new trenches. Their commanders planning the final assault that would break through the bunker's defenses and kill everyone inside. When will they arrive? She asked. The message said 12 hours. 12 hours. Lena looked at the enemy forces spread across the landscape. Looked at her exhausted soldiers, her empty supply rooms, her failing equipment. 12 hours might be too long. The Vrexians could attack at any moment. But for the first time in 47 days, she felt something that might have been hope. Then we hold, she said. Whatever it takes, we hold for 12 more hours. Damon nodded slowly. I will tell the troops. As he walked away, Lena turned to Cerise. Ambassador, you look afraid. If these Deathbringers are as powerful as you say, should you not be relieved? Cerise was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her words were soft and sad. I am afraid, Commander. Not of what will happen if the Deathbringers fail. I am afraid of what will happen when they succeed. Some prices are higher than we understand until after we have paid them. Lena did not know what to say to that. So she said nothing, and together they watched the sky and waited for salvation to arrive. The Tellarni had found Earth almost 100 years ago. Their exploration ships had been mapping the outer edges of known space when they detected RADI-O signals coming from a small blue planet orbiting an average yellow star. They had been curious. They had decided to investigate. What they found was a species much like many others in the galaxy. Humans were clever and creative. They fought among themselves often, but showed signs of growing beyond such behavior. They had developed nuclear weapons, but had used them only twice in a single war, many decades before the aliens arrived. The Tellarni saw this as a sign of wisdom and restraint. Earth was welcomed into the Galactic Coalition. The humans received new technology, new trading partners, and the protection of a community that spanned thousands of star systems. In return, they were expected to follow coalition laws, contribute to shared defense efforts, and behave as peaceful members of galactic society. For nearly a century, humans had played this role perfectly. They were friendly and cooperative. They built colonies and trading posts. They served in coalition military units alongside Tellarni and Korvathi and dozens of other species. They seemed grateful for everything they had been given. The coalition believed it understood humanity. It was wrong. Deep beneath the mountains of Earth, In facilities that did not appear on any official map, a different story had been unfolding. The humans had smiled and nodded and accepted their role as junior partners in the galactic community. But they had never stopped asking one simple question: what happens when the galaxy decides we are no longer useful? Earth's leaders had studied history. Not just human history, but the history of the Coalition itself. They had read about the Villani, a peaceful species who had trusted the Coalition completely and been abandoned when defending them became too expensive. They had learned about the Morthian hegemony, betrayed by allies who decided that neutrality was more profitable than loyalty. They had seen the pattern repeat again and again. Trust was dangerous. Dependence was deadly. The only true security came from power. So while Earth played the role of the grateful newcomer, its military scientists worked in secret. They studied every piece of alien technology they could find, legally or otherwise. They asked one question about each new discovery: how can we make this kill? The Deathbringer program began 70 years ago. It started with volunteers, men and women who were willing to give up everything they were in exchange for becoming something new, something stronger. The process took 17 years for each candidate. First came the genetic modifications, rewriting their bodies at the deepest level. Their muscles were made denser and more efficient. Their bones were reinforced with materials that did not exist in any Coalition database. Their eyes were altered to see in spectrums that normal humans could not perceive. Then came the cybernetic enhancements, neural implants that accelerated their reflexes to superhuman levels, computer systems woven into their brains that let them process tactical information faster than any machine, communication devices that allowed them to coordinate without speaking a single word. Finally came the psychological conditioning, years of training that burned away fear, hesitation, and doubt. The candidates learned to think of themselves as weapons rather than people. They learned to value the mission above all else, including their own survival. The process was brutal. Only 12% of candidates survived to completion. The others died during the modifications or broke under the psychological strain. But those who made it through emerged as something the galaxy had never seen before. They were called Deathbringers, and they were magnificent in their terrible way. A single Deathbringer could move faster than the eye could follow. They could react to threats before most beings even perceived them. Their armor was made of materials that could absorb energy blasts that would vaporize normal soldiers. Their weapons were nightmares given physical form, designed to kill in ways that Coalition science did not fully understand. There were only 600 of them. Creating more was possible, but slow. The enhancement process was too difficult, the survival rate too low, and the psychological requirements too demanding. Only 1 in 50,000 applicants met the basic criteria, and most of those failed somewhere along the 17-year path. But 600 had proven to be enough. In the decades since the program began, the Deathbringers had been deployed 3 times. Each operation was so secret that even most human governments did not know about it. The targets had been threats to human interests that could not be addressed through normal channels. A pirate fleet that had been attacking human colonies simply vanished one night. The Coalition assumed they had fled to another region of space. In truth, the Deathbringers had found their hidden base and killed every single person inside. A government on a distant world had been capturing human merchants and selling them as slaves. One evening, every member of their military leadership died in what appeared to be a series of unrelated accidents. The slave trade ended immediately. No one ever discovered the connection. A criminal organization that had been threatening Earth's interests received a single warning to stop. When they refused, their entire operation was destroyed in a single night of violence that left no survivors and no witnesses. The Coalition never learned the truth about any of these events. The humans were careful to hide their tracks, to create plausible explanations. to maintain their image as peaceful and cooperative partners. But now, for the first time, the Covenant of Last Resort had been invoked. This ancient protocol, created in the earliest days of Earth's coalition membership, allowed humans to respond to extreme threats without restraint. It meant that the Deathbringers would be deployed openly. With the full knowledge of coalition leadership, the galaxy was about to learn what humanity had been hiding. In the command center of the ship that was racing toward Calveth Prime, Captain Nina Vance reviewed the mission parameters. She was 47 years old, though she looked much younger. The enhancements had slowed her aging along with everything else. They changed. She felt nothing as she studied the tactical data. The Vrexian fleet was large, but size meant little against Deathbringers. The enemy had numbers and firepower. Her people had something more important. They had been built for exactly this moment. Nina closed her eyes and connected to her ship's systems through the neural link in her brain. Around her, 36 Deathbringers prepared for deployment. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their thoughts flowed together through their implants, a silent symphony of preparation and purpose. The Vrexians had made a mistake when they attacked the coalition outpost. They had made a worse mistake when they trapped human soldiers among the defenders. Now they would learn what that mistake would cost them. The ship accelerated toward Calveth Prime, carrying death in its hull and destruction in its heart. The Deathbringers were coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them. Overlord Sketh had grown comfortable in his victory. His fleet controlled the space around Calveth Prime completely. His ground forces surrounded the last coalition bunker, squeezing it tighter every day. The defenders were running out of food, out of ammunition, out of hope. It was only a matter of time before they surrendered or died. He stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching his warriors prepare for the final assault. Tomorrow, perhaps the day after, they would break through the bunker's defenses and claim the planet's rich mineral deposits for the Vrexian Empire. His name would be written in the histories. His clan would gain honor beyond measure. Then his sensor operator made a sound of confusion. Overlord, the insectoid officer clicked. "We are detecting an approaching vessel." Sketh turned to look at the display. A single dot was moving toward the planet from the edge of the system. "Just one ship. Small. Alone. Identify it," he commanded. "We cannot, Overlord. The hull design does not match any known coalition species." The sensor operator's mandibles twitched nervously. "The energy readings are strange. One moment the ship appears to have almost no power. The next, our sensors show output levels higher than a coalition dreadnought." Sketh studied the approaching dot with his compound eyes. He felt no fear. How could he? His fleet numbered 300 warships. Whatever this small vessel was, it posed no real threat. "Open communications," he said. The view screen flickered, and a face appeared. Human. Female. She had short dark hair and gray eyes that showed no emotion at all. Her face was perfectly still, like a mask carved from stone. "Vrexian fleet," the human said. Her voice was flat and cold. "This is Captain Nina Vance of the ship Harbinger. You are attacking coalition territory. You have 1 hour to withdraw all your forces from this system. If you do not leave, you will be destroyed." For a moment, Sketh was too surprised to respond. Then he began to laugh. The sound was harsh and clicking, and it echoed through the command deck. "One ship?" he said when he could speak again. "The Coalition sends one tiny ship, crewed by humans, and demands that I surrender." He leaned forward, spreading his mandibles in a gesture of contempt. "Human, I have 300 warships. Your vessel will be dust before you finish speaking again." The human's expression did not change. "You have been warned. Your hour begins now." The screen went dark. Sketh stared at the empty display for a moment. Then he turned to his tactical officer. Destroy them. 30 warships broke formation and moved to intercept a human vessel. They were fast attack cruisers, designed to hunt down and kill enemy ships. Against a single frigate-sized target, they were more than enough. Far below, on the planet's surface, Commander Lena Morris watched the confrontation unfold on the bunker's damaged sensors. She had intercepted the communication between the Vrexian commander and the human ship. Now she stood with Ambassador Cerise and Lieutenant Damon Price, watching the display that showed the 30 Vrexian ships closing in on the Harbinger. "One ship," Damon said. His voice was hollow. "They sent one ship against 300. Lena did not respond. She watched the Vrexian cruisers form an attack pattern, watched them prepare to fire. The Harbinger made no attempt to run or hide. It simply continued flying forward, directly toward the enemy fleet. Cerise stood very still beside her. The ambassador's skin was pulsing with strange patterns of light that Lena had never seen before. "Commander," Cerise said quietly, "when I invoked the Covenant, I had to read classified files about the Deathbringers, about their ships and weapons and tactics." She paused. "I do not think you understand what is about to happen." On the display, the 30 Vrexian ships opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Harbinger. The barrage was overwhelming, enough firepower to destroy a dozen normal vessels. The Harbinger flew directly into it. Lena expected to see the human ship explode. Instead, she saw something impossible. The Harbinger's hull seemed to absorb the incoming fire. Energy blasts that should have burned through metal simply vanished against its surface. Missiles detonated against it and left no visible damage. Then the Harbinger began to fight back. The first weapon it fired was something Lena had never seen before. A burst of invisible energy that passed through the lead Vrexian ship's shields as if they did not exist. On the display, Lena watched the ship's bridge go dark. The vessel continued flying for 3 seconds, then suddenly turned and crashed into the ship beside it. Both exploded in a ball of fire. The second weapon was simpler, but no less deadly. Small projectiles, fired so fast they were barely visible, punched through Vrexian hulls like needles through cloth. Ships that were hit simply came apart, their armor offering no resistance at all. The third weapon was the worst. The sensors could not properly identify it. The readings showed something like guided plasma, but that made no sense. Plasma could not be controlled with such precision. Yet Lena watched glowing shapes flow through the holes in damaged Vrexian ships, hunting down crew members and burning them where they stood. In less than 2 minutes, all 30 intercepting ships were destroyed or dying. Overlord Sketh stared at his display in disbelief. Around him, his bridge crew had gone completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. They simply watched the impossible scene before them. "All ships," Sketh said. His voice was steady, but his mandibles trembled slightly. "Focus fire on the human vessel. Everything we have. Now." 270 warships turned their weapons toward the Harbinger. The combined firepower of an entire fleet, concentrated on a single target. Nothing could survive such an assault. Nothing. The Harbinger did not try to dodge. It could not. No ship could evade that much concentrated fire. But something strange began to happen. The ship's hull started to change. Panels slid aside, revealing hidden systems beneath the outer surface. The Harbinger's energy signature suddenly increased by a factor of 10, then 20, then higher than the Vrexian sensors could measure. A field of some kind expanded outward from the ship, and the incoming weapons fire began to bend away, deflected by forces that the Vrexians could not understand or counter. Then the Harbinger accelerated. It moved forward into the Vrexian fleet, faster than anything that Psi should be able to move. It passed through the formation like a blade through water, and every ship it passed exploded behind it. In the bunker below, Lena Morris watched in silence as the Vrexian fleet died. Ships tried to flee in every direction, abandoning formation, abandoning each other. The Harbinger pursued them with patient, methodical precision. It did not miss. It did not hesitate. It simply killed. "That is not a frigate," Damon said. His voice shook. "That is not any ship I have ever heard of." A few Vrexian vessels tried to surrender. They powered down their weapons and broadcast messages of submission. The Harbinger destroyed them anyway. "They are not accepting surrenders," Lena said. "No." Cerise's voice was barely a whisper. "They will not. The Covenant of Last Resort requires complete elimination of the threat. No exceptions. No mercy." The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 15 minutes. When it was over, the Vrexian fleet no longer existed. 300 warships had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Thousands of Vrexian warriors floated dead in the cold of Space and the Harbinger, untouched and undamaged, turned toward the planet below. Toward the surface, where the Vrexian ground forces still surrounded the bunker. "They are coming down," Lena said. Cerise nodded slowly. "Yes, and I am sorry, Commander. I am sorry for what you are about to see." Lena looked at the ambassador. "You called them here to save us." "I did." Cerise's large eyes were filled with something that might have been grief. "And they will save us. But there are some saviors that leave scars on those they rescue. The Deathbringers are such saviors." On the display, the Harbinger began its descent through the atmosphere. Below it, 10,000 Vrexian soldiers waited in their siege lines, unaware that death was falling toward them from the sky. The dropships came down through the burning sky like falling stars. There were 12 of them, small and angular, painted the same matte black as the void between worlds. They fell faster than any normal landing craft, faster than should have been possible without tearing themselves apart. "Commander." Lena Morris watched them descend on the bunker's external displays. Beside her, a Kovathi soldier named Viorin pointed at the screen with one clawed hand. "They are coming in too fast," Viorin said. "At that speed, they will crash. The impact will kill everyone inside." The dropships did not crash. At the last possible moment, they performed braking maneuvers so violent that the display could barely track them. They stopped in midair, hung for half a heartbeat, then settled to the ground in a perfect circle around the bunker entrance. The landing was so precise that each ship touched down exactly the same distance from the others. The hatches opened, and the Deathbringers emerged. Lena had tried to imagine what they would look like. She had pictured large soldiers in heavy armor, perhaps carrying massive weapons. She had expected something obviously dangerous, something that screamed threat and power. What she saw was different. The Deathbringers were human-sized. Their armor was smooth and black, without any markings or decorations. Their helmets had no visible sensors or cameras, just featureless surfaces that reflected nothing. They moved with a strange grace, each step perfectly controlled, wasting no energy on unnecessary motion. There were 36 of them. They carried weapons that hummed with barely contained power, but the weapons seemed almost secondary. The true danger was in the way they moved, in the silent coordination that required no words or signals. They spread out from the dropships without pausing, without speaking, without any visible communication. One moment they were standing near their landing craft. The next, they were moving toward the Vrexian lines with the smooth inevitability of rising water. The Vrexian ground forces numbered over 10,000. They had been laying siege to the bunker for nearly 7 weeks. They had artillery that could level buildings, armored vehicles that could crush anything in their path, and air support that could rain fire from above. They had dug trenches and built fortifications and planned their final assault down to the smallest detail. None of it mattered. The Deathbringers hit the first Vrexian defensive. line like a storm hitting a coastline. The insectoid soldiers tried to bring their weapons to bear, tried to form firing lines, tried to coordinate their response. They were too slow. By the time they understood they were under attack, the black armored humans were already among them. Lena watched through the bunker's cameras as a single Deathbringer engaged an entire Vrexian company. The human moved so fast that the display struggled to track the motion. One moment the Deathbringer was standing still. The next, 5 Vrexians were falling with wounds that had appeared faster than the eye could see. The Vrexian soldiers fired their weapons. Energy blasts and projectiles filled the air around the Deathbringer. But the humans seemed to know where every shot would go before it was fired. They dodged by fractions of inches, moving just enough to let the attacks pass harmlessly by. When they could not dodge, their armor absorbed the hits without visible effect. One Vrexian commander managed to bring a plasma cannon to bear. It was a heavy weapon, designed to destroy vehicles and fortifications. The blast hit the Deathbringer directly in the chest. Lena expected the human to fall. A plasma cannon at that range would have vaporized any normal soldier. Instead, the Deathbringer staggered back a single step. The armor glowed white-hot where the blast had struck. Steam rose from the surface. Then the Deathbringer continued forward and killed the cannon operator with a single strike. The battle spread across the siege lines. 36 Deathbringers moved through 10,000 Vrexian soldiers, and everywhere they went, death followed. The Vrexians tried to fall back and regroup. The Deathbringers pursued. The Vrexians tried to concentrate their fire. The Deathbringers scattered, then reformed, then struck from unexpected angles. There was no panic in the black armored humans. No hesitation. No emotion at all. They killed with the same patient efficiency that a machine might show when performing its designed function. Every movement served a purpose. Every shot found its target. Every second brought more Vrexians to the ground. In the bunker, the Coalition survivors watched in stunned silence. The Telreni soldiers stood motionless, their bioluminescent skin dark with shock. The Kavathi warriors, who prided themselves on their martial culture, looked at each other with expressions that mixed awe and fear. Even Damon Price, who had spent 20 years in Coalition military service, could only stare at the display without speaking. Ambassador Cerise watched with ancient eyes that had seen many terrible things. "This is what they are," she said softly. "This is what humans created in their secret places. Weapons that wear human faces. Death that walks on human legs." "They are winning," Lena said. Her voice sounded strange in her own ears. "They were always going to win." Cerise turned to look at her. "The Deathbringers have never failed. They cannot fail. Failure has been removed from them as completely as fear or mercy." Outside, the Vrexian lines were collapsing. Soldiers who had spent weeks confident in their coming victory were now running for their lives. Artillery positions that had been preparing for the final assault were torn apart before they could fire a single shot. The armored vehicles that the Vrexians had relied on became coffins for their crews. Their thick hulls no protection against weapons, designed by human engineers who had studied Coalition technology and found ways to defeat it. The air support never arrived. When Vrexian fighters tried to approach the battlefield, beams of light reached up from the Harbinger, still hovering overhead, and swatted them from the sky like insects. Lena tried to count the Vrexian dead. She gave up after the numbers became too large to track. The ground outside the bunker was covered with bodies. The orange sky had darkened with smoke from burning vehicles and equipment. 20 minutes after the Deathbringers had landed, the battle was over. The last Vrexian soldiers threw down their weapons and raised their limbs in surrender. They knelt on the blood-soaked ground and waited for mercy. The Deathbringers killed them anyway. Lena watched a black armored human walk up to a group of surrendering Vrexians and execute them one by one. There was no anger in the action, no cruelty, just the systematic completion of a task. "They are killing prisoners," she said. "They are killing soldiers who surrendered." Yes, Ceris's voice was heavy with old grief. "The Covenant of Last Resort requires total elimination of the threat. The Deathbringers do not take prisoners. They do not accept surrenders. They continue until the enemy is completely destroyed. That is not war." Lena felt sick. "That is extermination." "Yes." Cerise looked at her with eyes that held no judgment. "It is. And you must understand, Commander, that this is exactly what the humans designed them to do. This is not a failure or an excess. This is the purpose for which they were created." The last Rexian soldier died with a weapon pressed against its head. The battlefield fell silent. 10,000 warriors who had been so confident of victory now lay dead in the dirt of a planet they would never conquer, and the Deathbringers stood among the bodies like statues, waiting for their next command, showing no more reaction to the carnage around them than stones would show to falling rain dog. Lena looked at the display and felt something cold settle in her chest. The coalition had been saved. She and her soldiers would live, but she could not stop wondering what price had been paid for that survival. The Volanthi convoy drifted through the empty darkness of space, far from any star or planet that could offer safety. 23 transport ships carried the last survivors of a dying civilization. 12,000 souls, mostly families with children, floated through the void with failing engines and fading hope. Ambassador Felovin stood at the viewing port of her ship, watching the distant lights of the Corax warships growing closer with each passing hour. Her species had 4 arms and skin that shifted colors with their emotions. Right now, her skin was pale gray, the color of despair. "How much time do we have?" she asked her navigation officer, a young male named Korath. 6 hours, maybe less, Korath replied. His own skin had turned the same gray shade. "Our engines are dying. We cannot run anymore." Felovin closed her eyes and remembered her homeworld. Beautiful Volanthos, with its crystal towers and floating gardens, where her people had lived in peace for 10,000 years. They had been artists and poets, scientists and dreamers. They had never built weapons because they believed all intelligent life would choose cooperation over conflict. The Corax had proven them wrong. The Dominion had arrived at their borders 2 years ago, offering friendship and trade. The Volanthi had welcomed them with open arms. 3 months later, Corax warships filled their skies. The bombardment lasted 6 days. When it ended, Volanthos was nothing but burning rubble and ash. These 23 ships held everyone who had escaped, everyone who was left. "Send a distress signal," Felovin ordered, "on every frequency, in every language we know." Korath looked at her with sad eyes. "Ambassador, there is no one to hear us. Every species in this sector either serves the Dominion or hides from them. No one will come. Send it anyway." Felovin turned back to the viewport. Perhaps somewhere out there, someone still believes in helping strangers. The signal burst outward at the speed of light, carrying a simple message. "We are civilians. We are being hunted. Please help us." It traveled past dead moons and empty asteroid fields, through clouds of cosmic dust and radiation, reaching out into the vast, uncaring universe, 300 light-years away. Someone was listening. Deep inside Charon, the largest moon of Pluto, the United Earth Space Navy maintained a listening post. It was a small facility carved into the frozen rock, staffed by a crew of 30 who spent their days monitoring the stars for any sign of intelligent life. Petty Officer Kevin Cho was halfway through his coffee when his console started beeping. At first, he thought it was a malfunction. They had been listening for 40 years and never heard anything but static and natural radio waves. But the pattern on his screen was too regular, too structured to be natural. "Commander Daniels," he called out, his voice shaking slightly. "I think you need to see this." Commander Lisa Daniels crossed the operations center quickly. She was a tall woman in her early 40s, with graying hair and sharp eyes that had seen 2 decades of service. She looked at the console and felt her heart skip. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked. "It's a signal, ma'am. Artificial. Intelligent." Cho's fingers flew across the interface. "And it's using mathematical patterns that look like emergency protocols. Universal distress codes. Can you translate it?" The station's artificial intelligence processed the signal for 3 seconds. Then words appeared on the screen. Words that would change human history forever. "We are the Volanti convoy. We are civilian refugees. We are being pursued by hostile forces. Our engines are failing. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. We have children aboard. We have nowhere else to go. Please." Daniels read the message twice. Then she reached for the priority communication channel. "Get me Admiral Pierce," she said. "Right now." Admiral Benjamin Pierce stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, flagship of the 3rd Battle Fleet, and listened to the translated distress signal for the 3rd time. Around him, his senior officers waited in tense silence. Pierce was 61 years old, with white hair cut short and a face marked by decades of hard decisions. He had fought in the Martian uprising when he was young. He had commanded ships during the Titan insurrection. He had buried friends and sent young people to their deaths. He knew the way of command better than anyone. "What do we know about these Volanti?" He asked. Lieutenant Amy Vance, his tactical officer, pulled up what little information they had. "Almost nothing, sir. This is the first confirmed contact with intelligent alien life in human history. Based on the signal, they appear to be refugees fleeing some kind of military force called the Corax Dominion." "And how far away are they?" 312 light years. At maximum jump speed, we can reach them in 14 hours. Captain Nicole Grant, his executive officer, stepped forward. "Admiral, with respect, we have no intelligence on these hostiles. We don't know their numbers, their capabilities, their technology. This could be a trap. It could be a trick to lure us into hostile territory." "It could be," Pierce agreed. "What else could it be, Captain?" Grant hesitated. "It could be exactly what it sounds like. Civilians running for their lives." Pierce nodded slowly. He walked to the main viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 300 light years away, 12,000 people were waiting to die. They had sent a message into the darkness, hoping against hope that someone would answer. He thought about Earth's history. The boats full of refugees crossing dangerous seas. The families fleeing war and persecution. The countless times humans had faced extinction and survived only because strangers chose to help. "Signal all ships," he said quietly. "We jump in 1 hour. I want full combat readiness across the fleet." "Sir," Grant pressed, "are you certain about this?" Pierce turned to face her. His eyes were calm, but his voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. "Captain, humanity spent thousands of years fighting itself. We nearly destroyed our own planet. We killed millions of our own kind in wars over land and resources and ideology. And then, somehow, we grew up. We learned to work together. We built ships that could cross the stars." He paused. "We didn't do all that just to turn our backs on people who need help. I didn't join this Navy to watch families die when I could have saved them." He looked around at his bridge crew, at the young men and women who had trusted him with their lives. "We're going," he said. "And whatever we find out there, we're going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for." 1 hour later, 27 warships of the United Earth Space Navy activated their jump drives and vanished into the light. Racing toward a distress signal from the other side of the galaxy. Ambassador Thelavin, did not know they were coming. She stood at her viewport, watching the Korak ships grow larger, and prepared her people for the end. She had no way of knowing that everything was about to change.